Welcome to week 4, lecture 4, anaerobic training methods 1. Objective of lecture 4 is to know types of anaerobic training methods, to know traditional person-based anaerobic training method, to know velocity-based training method. The outcome of lecture 4 is to identify types of anaerobic training methods available with you and to be familiar with person-based and velocity-based anaerobic methods of training. Let's be familiar with different anaerobic training methods. Person-based training method, velocity-based training method, post-activation potentiation training method, blood flow restriction method, flywheel training method. We will explore person-based training and velocity-based training methods in lecture 4. Now, what is person-based training method? It is the most common anaerobic training method to improve strength and power. Relative load is selected on potential absolute 1 Rm. For that, National Strength and Conditioning Association relative reps with percent Rm guidelines is used, which is 100% of 1 Rm means you perform an exercise for 1 repetition. So you use a load that will enable you to make only 1 repetition. That represents 100% of your 1 Rm. 80% of 1 Rm means you use a load that will enable you to make 8 repetition. Now 8 repetition is represented by the load of 80% of your muscular strength ability. Now this is how you use the person-based training method. Let's consider example. Back squat 1 Rm is 100 kg. Let's assume you have a back squat 1 Rm as 100 kg. It means that you have performed a squat exercise and you are able to lift 100 kg for 1 repetition. This represents your 100% of 1 Rm. Now you prescribed a workout to improve your muscular strength at 80% of 1 Rm. Now 80% represents 8 Rm using the NSCA's repetition relative to the percent 1 Rm guidelines. Now you have a benchmark of 100 kg for 1 Rm for squat exercise. So 80% of 1 Rm represents 80 kg. So you use 80 kg of load for 4 sets for 8 repetitions. That's how a person-based training method is used to improve muscular strength. However, person-based training has few drawbacks to understand. One, daily and weekly change in strength due to the strength training adaptation. So if you have a baseline 100 kgs of 1 Rm for your squat, after 2 weeks of time, you would able to lift 5 to 10% more as an obvious adaptation and improvement in your muscular strength after completing the strength program. So in that case, you using 80% of 1 Rm, which is 80 kgs, after 2 weeks of time won't be the true relative load and thereby not a true muscular stimulation. The second drawback is to prescribe the current 1 Rm relative load, you need to perform the 1 Rm test repeatedly every week for every session, which is practically not possible and not recommended. Another drawback is the ability to lift heavy weight with prescribed relative percent 1 Rm depends on athlete's intrinsic motivation. It means that if you are motivated for a given workout, you may even lift much more heavier than the prescribed load. That example, 80 kg was the 80% of 1 Rm, considering that 100% was 100 kgs. But because you have motivation is high for a given workout, you may able to lift more than 80 kgs at 80% of 1 RM. And this happens very commonly and regularly when you use a person-based training method. So another drawback is person-based training method do not give you a feedback to correct or change the prescribed relative person of 1 RM. So you have to perform the sets, complete the workout, and then you come out to a conclusion that you may able to lift much more heavier or you may not able to lift much more heavier. To overcome the drawbacks of person-based training method, you can use an alternate method called as velocity-based training method, which was presented by Bosco and Herman much more earlier before it is commonly being used in current situation. In VBT, velocity, that is speed of movement, is used rather than the relative load to improve the maximal strength and power, which is called as rate of force development. Here, the velocity for a given fitness variable is predefined. For maximal strength, the velocity of movement should be less than 0.5 meter per second. For rate of force development, which emphasizes speed strength, the velocity of movement should be in between 1 to 1.3 meter per second. Velocity-based training method is implemented using a linear position transductor or an accelerometer technology to calculate the velocity. You have to understand the fact that there is an inverse relationship between velocity of movement and load lifted. It means that if you are lifting the load which is very heavy, that is close to 100% of 1 RM, the velocity of movement would be slow. In contrast, if you are lifting the load which is much more away from 100% of 1 RM, for example, let's say 60% of 1 RM or 50% of 1 RM, you can perform the given exercise with much more higher velocity. There are multiple companies that provide velocity-based training devices, which uses either a linear position transductor, that is LPT technology, or an accelerometer to calculate the velocity of movement and thereby the power of movement. Let's consider an example how velocity-based training can be utilized in improving power fitness variable. The sample prescription is to improve muscular strength with 2 exercises of 4 sets at 0.5 meter per second. Here, rather than writing percent of 1 RM, the velocity of the movement is prescribed. Let's say you want to perform an RDL with 4 sets and 4 repetitions. Now, because you are using a velocity-based training device, you perform an RDL with a load that will enable you to move the bar with a speed not greater than 0.5 meter per second. Now, considering the inverse relationship between the velocity of movement and load lifted, because the speed of the velocity is much more less, the relative load to perform RDL will be much more higher, which will represent your muscular strength ability. Advantage of VBT is ability to adjust the relative load in every workout, which is also called as auto-regulation. Now, this is not possible in a traditional person-based training variable, where the earlier 100 kg as your 100% of 1 RM changes after 2 weeks of muscular strength training. So, after the week 1, 80% of 1 RM for 100 kg would be 80 kgs, which will not be the case after 2 weeks of muscular strength training. And this can be very objectively corrected using velocity-based training device method. You would able to get the same results in less amount of time and less volume, because every repetition that you perform, you try to target the velocity which can be monitored using the device. So velocity based training device gives you a very objective live feedback, not just for every exercise but for every repetition, which helps you to perform every exercise, every repetition and every workout very effectively to give the results. Ability to identify the fatigue. This is one of the advantages of velocity based training device, upon which an informed decision can be taken whether to continue the workout or to abort the training session. As an example, you perform a Romanian deadlift with 80 kgs at 0.5 meter per second in week 1. You come in week 2 and you use the same load, but you are not able to maintain the velocity of movement and you are much more lower in the speed. So earlier week you are able to perform at 0.5 meter per second, but in week 2 you are able to perform at 0.2 meter per second. Now this represents fatigue in your neuromuscular system, and this is possible using VBT device. In this scenario, you may choose not to continue the workout because there is a fatigue. Drawbacks to consider for velocity based training device is the velocity range cannot be adjusted for athlete having fast twitch muscle fiber or athlete who are more explosive. The equipment that is used to monitor the velocity of the movement is a bit expensive, and you need to educate the athlete on how to use the VBT before starting the technology with an aim to improve muscular strength or power. In summary, in person-based training, intensity of lift is selected from 1 RM capacity. To use person-based training method, you have to follow NSCS guidelines to match person 1 RM prescribed to relative repetition to complete. Person-based training method, though used most commonly, has drawbacks like daily or weekly change in 1 RM capacity, no feedbacks available to lift on the lift to correct the relative person 1 RM. On other hand, velocity-based training method, intensity of lift is selected matching the velocity of movement by a VBT device. In VBT method, relative load can be auto-regulated. Rate of force development RFD can be trained objectively and accurately using a VBT device. In VBT, one can find out fatigue level before starting a training session, and VBT requires a sophisticated equipment in order to implement it. Thank you.